Hi, this is Dr. Georgia. I hope you find today's message a blessing in your life. We want to make sure that we continue to provide these video messages for you when you can't come to church, or for those of you who live in a different state, or we noticed recently we have a lot of people in even different countries who are tuning in. So if that is you and you can donate to us, we invite you to hit that donate button just below the message here. So thanks so much. Let's prepare ourselves. So just put your hands over your eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
Now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
Now over your heart and extend out your arms, I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that each and every one of us, no matter how far we've wandered away from our happiness, from our success, always has the ability to hear the call of congruence. That call back to meaning in our life, that call back to joy, to love, to abundance, to creativity. We always have that opportunity to hear that call back to our center in our life. You know, that idea came from this book that I'm working with today. I just did a little two-point series. Today's the last day, called If You Know Who You Are, You'll Know What to Do. If you know who you are, you'll know what to do. If you know that at your essence, you are compassionate, that when anybody comes at you trying to make you feel small, or bullies you, even in the gentlest way, if you know who you are, you'll know what to do. If you know at your essence that you live in an abundant universe, and that you are in fact an abundant person right now, that when that fear comes up that you don't have the mortgage, you don't have the rent, you don't have money for the kids' teeth or daycare, if you know who you are, you'll know what to think. You'll know how to do. You'll know how to proceed. If you know at your essence where nobody has ever gotten to you, at that essence of you, if you know you are happy at your essence, that when the blues hit, when depression starts to sneak in, if you know who you are, you'll know what to do. You know, when we don't know what to do, we've lost our connection, that thread that is from our soul to our mind. We've lost our connection to what some of us call God. What the Muslims say is God is closer than our very neck vein. We've lost that connection to our very neck vein in our life. Well, it takes work to get disconnected, but we've all, at one time or another, managed to do it very well. You know, this book is called Disconnecting. When he talks about disconnecting from God, disconnecting from our essence, what he's really talking about is disconnecting, in his words, from our integrity, from our authenticity. You know, each one of us were sent here fully whole, perfect, and complete. And when we lose that connection, we've lost connection with our own integrity. So I want to talk about three ways that he talks. He has a chapter here called the 3 Detours. The 3 Detours from our connection with God. Allah, Elohim, divine wisdom, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it. Don't let yourself get tripped up on God. If it doesn't work for you, simply substitute what does work for you. There is a power greater than you and I are in this universe that is not a man in the sky with a beard, black or white. Not a woman in the sky with a beard, black or white. There is an essence that is available to you all of the time. So the first way he says we disconnect is that we lose our self-esteem. We lose our self-esteem. Now, self-esteem is different than self-identity. Self-identity is knowing who you are, and that's important. It's an important first step. But self-esteem is, once we know who we are, we value it. We think it's good who we are. We're positive about who we are. We are worthy. And if there's one thing I'd like to instill in myself and every single one of us, we are worthy of joy, of success, of love, right now. No matter where you've been or what you've done, you are worthy. How do I know that? Because you're breathing. Breathing, worthy. Breathing, worthy. We have to get connected back to that understanding. See, positive self-regard builds our ability to have confidence to meet the challenges of life and to bounce back when things knock us down. Now, I would like to say nothing's ever going to knock me down again, but I'm not that foolish. And I'm not throwing out that gauntlet for it to be challenged. But when we get knocked down, if we have self-esteem, we have self-confidence, we have the ability to get back up and go on. When you know who you are, you're on your way to experiencing good self-esteem. We're no longer afraid of authenticity. We're no longer afraid to present, this is who I am. This is who I've defined who I am. I dress this way for a reason. I love this way for a reason. I think this way for a reason. I respond to life through this way for a reason. And that reason is because it's me. And what you see is what you get. What you see today is what you get. And hopefully, if my self-esteem is strong enough, what you see tomorrow is also what you'll get in this life. See, good self-esteem doesn't mean that we're always infallible. It means that we're always trying. That's what it means. It means that we're affirming that we're good, not that we're infallible. Sadly, most of us who have experienced a blow to our self-esteem, we were robbed of our positive self-regard when we were very young, when our well-meaning parents, or when society was more interested in what we were achieving than our happiness, than what we were doing, than who we were being in our life. Every society, every culture has an ideal, what they consider to be good, to be perfect. And most of us in this room have not measured up to that ideal at some point in our life, at some time in our life, and in some area of our life. I grew up as a chubby kid. That was not the ideal in my culture, in my family, and in society. So my positive self-regard began to get diminished. I have work to do. That's all it is. I have work to do to see that little Georgia with positive, spiritually mature eyes, to go back and to reframe those experiences into positive self-regard for our lives. See, whether the criteria is intelligence or beauty or wealth or personality or athleticism, many of us have grown up in some area to think we're not good enough, but we were. And when you come to this church and when you begin to study and you begin to understand, I am a representation of God on the planet. What's not good enough? Hello. Of course I'm good enough. There was a study done of world-class athletes, a group of world-class athletes, and they were told three things. They were told, we will give you a self-enhancing drug. And what you know about this self-enhancing performance drug is this. There are three things. You need to know that you will win every competition you take on in the next 5 years with this drug. You also need to know you will never get caught taking this drug. And the third thing you need to know about this drug is you will die at the end of 5 years. And over half of the athletes wanted to take the drug. We're so starved to strive for achievement in our life, we forget. We forget our connection. You know, we think that self-esteem comes from the esteem of others, from the accolades of others. But the problem is, all that is phantom. It all can go away in an instant. See, anytime that we're getting our esteem from others, it's not self-esteem. It's other esteem directed at us. And it can be slipped away in an instant. There are hundreds of celebrities right now who knew that fame for an instant. And now it's gone. Our work is to know that it's not about what's outside, it's about what's inside in our life. So the first one is not losing our self-esteem. The second one he talks about in terms of the detour, we get detoured through narcissism when we think we're greater than anybody else. Now, narcissism comes, the term comes from the Greek myth of Narcissus, a young man who was so in love with his reflection. But that's all he did, was he stood around and looked at his reflection. Maybe you've heard of the Hollywood director who was at a cocktail party, and he was talking, and he was overheard to say, "Okay, enough about me. Let's talk about you. How did you like my last movie?" That's what happens when we get caught up in this in our life. Grandiosity and entitlement are two words that are often associated with narcissistic folks in our life. One fellow put it this way. He said there's a group of people who think were born on third base, and they think they hit a triple. You know, it wasn't through their work, but through just their how they were born. I actually think narcissism is a mental illness, but I also think it's a spiritual illness. It's an illness that suggests that we've disconnected from our own God that lives within ourselves in our life. See, we've lost touch with our souls. We're not connected with that presence that is within us all the time. We forget that we're whole, perfect, and complete, and we don't need embellishments. No embellishments to you are needed. How you present yourself is how you present yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, you don't want to continue to get better or wear earrings or what. That's not the embellishment I'm talking about. It's that embellishment that you think you need to make something of yourself that you're not. The author says the problem with self-made men is they always want to worship themselves in our life. They want to worship their creators. So the first one is self-esteem. The second one is narcissism. The third way we detour ourselves is we forget to integrate the human you and the spiritual you in your life. It may be that you don't feel bigger or littler than anybody else, but you've just kind of drifted. So the third way is that we drift, and we've all drifted. We've all gone in places where we knew that we shouldn't go for our own sense of self-worth, our own sense of integrity in our life. We've all followed voices we shouldn't have followed. We've all followed directions we shouldn't have followed. And all of us in this room just need to know that we can train ourselves to reconnect. Every time you get to a place where you know you shouldn't be, either in your mind or physically, you say to yourself, I need to reconnect. Now, we make spirituality way too difficult, way too hard. But if we could learn this phrase, I need to reconnect. I need to reconnect. We can do that, and what it does is it brings conscious awareness to a shift, a change that we are certainly capable of making in our life. Jesus knew this. Jesus knew this because he talked about a parable called the prodigal son. Now look, here's the thing about Jesus and parables. We want to really remember. When Jesus wanted to tell us something he thought we'd get, okay, they'll get this. They'll get this helpful hint. I'm just going to tell them this helpful hint. And he did. He just said it right out. Here's what I think. When he knew that we were going to throw up a barrier, a defense, ooh, I don't want to hear that. Haven't you given some advice to friends that you knew was right? No, I don't want to hear that. When he knew that was going to be the reaction, he was so smart. He gave a parable, a story, because it's so much easier for us to hear about somebody else's problems and solution than our own. And then in the privacy of our own thoughts, we can say, oh yeah, maybe that's me too. That's what he did with the prodigal son. With the prodigal son, he knew that he was going to be met with offenses. And so he told a story about a young man who wanted to have a portion of his inheritance so he could do what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. He heard the call to adventure. See, a lot of times we make this kid out bad. He's not bad. He heard the call to adventure, and he wanted to go, and he did. The problem wasn't that he went. The problem is he didn't take himself with him. He didn't take the conscious contact that he could have had with the presence of God wherever he went. And so he ended up listening to a lot of people and doing a lot of things that in the end didn't serve him. Now the problem is when he left his family, his dad gave him the money, but not without a little tiff. And I want us to hear that part of the story because a lot of us, when relationships are complete in our life, whether they're complete with our families or whether they're romantic or whether they're jobs, we burn down the house on our way out. And we don't need to do that anymore. We can just say, this is complete. Here's what I need to go on, and I'm going on. But of course he didn't do that, and we don't usually do that either. But we can learn from that. So what he did was he went, and because he burned down the house, he didn't think he could go back. He didn't think he could get any help. And that's a sad thing because people were waiting and willing to help in his life. He didn't hear that still small voice, either when he went or when he tried to come down in his life. See, without connecting to that still small voice, what happens is we stop listening. And even when we walk out of here, and now we're connected, I hope you're committed. I'm going to hear this. I'm going to take my adventure. This is all about, we want you to have adventure. Don't stop having adventure. We want you to have adventure. And when we talk about taking yourself with you, I'm not talking about taking your little kid self with you who went to church and the church said you shouldn't play cards and you shouldn't dance and you shouldn't whatever else the church might have told you. I'm not talking about that still small voice. I'm talking about the still small voice of the God that loves you so much. It wants you to have whatever experience you can have. But take your voice with you. Take your still small voice with you. Now look, don't be hard on yourself because there are times that you're going to hear the voice. I don't want to hear it. You know, I have been involved in, Reverend Dr. Michael says this. He says, you make the connection, the correction will take care of yourself. You make the connection, correction will take care of itself. You better make sure you want the correction. No? I've been involved in a recovery program for food addiction for many years. And I know and believe with all my heart that if I believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to a way to not eat a package of cookies in one television program, I believe that. But I don't want it. I want my drift. Okay? There are times you're going to want your drift. Listen to the still small voice. But don't beat yourself up. If you have the drift, know that you can still, the voice doesn't get shut off. Look, God never gives us a cold shoulder. God will tell you something, and if you don't want to hear it, God will tell you again. And again. And 400 pounds later, God will tell you again. Just keep listening to the still, small voice in your life. See, we can be fully engaged with ourselves. If we know who we are, we'll know what to do. Say that with me. If we know who we are, we'll know what to do. Let's do it again. If we know who we are, we'll know what to do. One more time. If we know who we are, we'll know what to do. Let's take this message into prayer. So I certainly turn my attention to this power that is so much greater than I am, that can instill in me love and harmony and good sense. I give thanks for that. I know it's here all the time. I know that I am walking with it, and no matter what I do, it will never leave me. For God is within. I give thanks for that. I release His word into the law, and together we